Testing, testing. Let's see. Testing, testing. Make sure everything through. Yahusha Akkad, everybody. Yahusha Akkad. All praise to the Most High. We're going to get right on in. Come on in. We about to begin. All praises to Yahuwah Alua. Told out to Yahuwah and Yahusha. We're going to try to get right started. You know, Shabbat Akkad to everybody. Want to give Olam Hudim La Yahuwah Ula Yahusha HaMashiach. I am Mispar Hudim La Malek Musha Ula Malek Yahusha. Adar Hudim La Malka Kayil Ula Malka Yada. Kafel Hudim La Rosha Luf Yithro Ula Rosha Atz Yeshayahu. Kafel Hudim La Shalit U Shalit Tub. Kafel Hudim La Mushalim Ula Mushala Ot. I want to give a special Kafel Hudim to my Isha Mushala Ahmed Yahoo. Toda to Yahuwah. For her, she is in the house. My spouse is in the house. Hallelujah. What else? Let's see. I want to give a Kafel Hudim to the Gabira Ot, to the Lahagma Ot, Kafel Hudim La Gabira Ot, Kafel Hudim La Ya'asim, Kafel Hudim La Alufim, La Hagma Ot, right, Mushala? Yeah, I'm tripping. La Hagma Ot. I want to give a Hudim La Sarar Ubakir Sarganim, Hudim La Sarar Ubakir Ezerot, Hudim La Sarar Ubakir Yakum Yamin, Hudim La Hadarim Ula Hadarot. And I want to say Shabbat Akkad. Yahusha Akkad, Shabbat Akkad, Laba'id, Yahoo. Salute. All praise to the Most High. All right, y'all. Let's see. All right, Kafel Hudim Mushala, Machahava, Amudah, Yahusha Akkad, Shabbat Akkad, Anala Yahu, and Imuna, Shabbat Akkad, Bakir Sagam Manu, Bakir Ezra Hadassah, Hudim, and Shabbat Akkad. Ima Shipra, Shabbat Akkad. Ima Sabar, Yahoo, Shabbat Akkad. Ima Gadol Dawood, and Ima Simcha, Shabbat Akkad. Ima Yashayahu, Shabbat Akkad. Netanel and Darda, Shabbat Akkad. Radah Yahu, Shabbat Akkad. All praise to the Most High. Shamar and Shakar, Shabbat Akkad. Tamira Son, Uriel, Shabbat Akkad to you. Uriel Reeve, Shabbat Akkad. All praise to the Most High. And Yirmiyahu and Shama Yahu, Shabbat Akkad. All praise to the Most High. If somebody can just let the I don't see she's trying to hold us, so somebody else can kind of just, let Julius and them know that we on, like Julius and Deontay, so they can jump on if they want to, so they'll know. Julius, Deontay, Amoria, etc., etc. But nevertheless, we will go from there now. Yeah, let's get right into it, though. All right, so we're going to continue to, through the book of MATITYAHU. We're going to continue through the book of MATITYAHU. So, let's see. In chapter, 22 now? Let's take a look at where we at in this book. Yeah, we wrapping up this book, y'all. Pretty sure, yeah, we on chapter 22. All right. Got a few more chapters left. All right. I'll share my screen. I don't see Bakir Loof on here, so I'm going to just go ahead and just get it. He probably on the road. All right. And Yahusha answered. Let's see, make sure everybody can hear me okay. All right. And Yahusha answered and spoke to them again by parables and said, so what we see here right away, we see that Yahusha is speaking, it says, and Yahusha answered and spoke to them again by parables, okay? So again, we see Yahusha speaking to somebody by parables again. And so in order to know what he's answering and speaking to in parables, we got to look at the previous chapter. So chapter 21, we'll go to the end. We see that he's talking to the Pharisees, it looks like. Because that's when he did, he's doing, in chapter 21 at the end, he's going doing the parable of the wicked vine dresser. He was talking to the Pharisees at this time because it says in verse 45, now when the chief priests and Pharisees heard his parables, they perceived that he was speaking of them. See what I'm saying? But when they sought to lay hands on him, they feared the multitudes because they took him for a prophet. So this is Yahusha talking to he's not talking to the disciples this time. Now he's talking to the Pharisees, the chief priests and the Pharisees. These are two different groups, the chief priests and the Pharisees. And so now, go to chapter 22, then it says, and Yahusha answered and spoke to them again. So as you see, he's talking to the Pharisees right now. That's who the them is. The chief priests, these are the heads over the temple, probably, who the chief priests are probably the heads who are in charge of the temple. And the Pharisees, the chief priests were probably the ones doing the sacrifices during that time. All that was still going on during this time, y'all. The temple, we got to remember, during the days of Yahushua HaMashiach and the Brit Hadashah, the temple was in full motion. The sacrifices were still going, all that. So that's probably who the chief priests were the people who were still doing those things, who were supposed to be the Levites. But when you look at history, that got corrupted. There was people there outside of the Levitical order. There were Edomites, stuff like that were kind of mixed in there. I know that definitely with the Pharisees, but I believe even in the priesthood, there was some stuff that was very corrupted during the days of Yahusha going on. But nevertheless, it says, the kingdom of the Shamaim is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son. Ooh. Now look how this starts off now. The kingdom of the Shamaim is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son. Look where that starts off at. I'll stop right there. Because the nobility, they don't just let their sons go out and come back and be like, I met a girl at the club. I'm in love. We gonna get married. You notice that the patriarchs in the scriptures and the nobility, they arranged their marriages for their sons. The people whom they married will have to come through certain bloodlines. I just wanted to throw that in there. I just want to throw that in there because we're not slaves anymore. We nobility. We're the people of Yahuwah. We're the set apart people of the Most High. We need to conduct ourselves as such. We need to conduct ourselves as such and go back to the ancient ways. Our patriarchs, our ancestors, they didn't just let our sons come back and be like, yeah, I met a new girl. Hey, here, I want y'all to meet Laquita. We in love. We gonna get married. You like, who's that? What bloodline is she from? We lost that. We just be like, oh, okay, you know, and then be grieved. And that's how that would go. That's how that would go every time. And so, let's see here. This ain't right. Okay, there we go. And so, going back to the ancient past is when we start seeing the things that we see in the scriptures happening again, where Abraham has sent for a wife for his son, where Yaakov, it was like, where Yitzhak was like, yeah, Yaakov, you need to go out and go amongst this family so that you can get a wife. You cannot get a wife from here. You know, where you see those things like that take place, where the scriptures was very specific on, you know, not being unequally yoked, and to like for the priest to only marry from these specific bloodlines, and just, you know, so on and so forth. You had the daughters of Zelophehad. If there's not a son who was from a man and it was only daughters, that daughter can only marry from within the tribe to keep the inheritance. Marriage was not just because you fall in love. Marriage had to do with inheritance, bloodline. It had to do with legacy and lineage. It had to do with all those things. And we done narrowed marriage down to just, we falling in love and just want to be happy, and things along those lines, when there's so much more. Why? Because we was conducting ourselves as if we're still like we're still like slaves to Babylon, and we are not. The Most High has revealed to us who we are. We are the people of the Most High, with nobility, to set apart of Yahusha, to set apart of Yasharal. We need to conduct ourselves as such. You would never see the Queen of England or the Prince of England just go and marry whoever he wants to. I mean, that happened at one time, but I'm talking about generally speaking. And when that happened, that was all over the news, right? He went and got him like wasn't she black or something? She was mixed or something. She looked like she was black, though. that, that was such a big deal. That was all over the news, y'all. the prince decided to go marry who he wanted to. He wasn't stunning, and he got ousted out of the. Didn't he get kicked out of the? He got kicked out of the castle. They disowned him for that. What more in the set apart of Yahuwah though? That's in Babylon. That's in the West. But what more when you're talking about the people of Yahuwah? A kingdom of kings and priests, a kingdom of Melachim and Kohen. But all right, let's keep going. The kingdom of the Shamaim is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son. All right, make sure I'm okay. And sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding, and they were not willing to come. Again, he sent out other servants, saying, tell those who are invited, see, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fatted cattle are killed, and all things are ready. Come to the wedding. But they made light of it and went their ways. Oh, this is crazy. This is Yahuwah. I was just talking to Bakir Sargam about this. All right. But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his business. Wow, this is just crazy, y'all. I'm about to like run out of the front door or something. something to keep me from screaming. Hit a wall or something. This is crazy. Verse 6, and the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them. But when the king heard about it, he was furious, and he sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. Then he said to his servants, the wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found, both bad and thug, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. So he said to him, friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. Man, all right. All righty. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look in the book. Let's take a look-see what it's going to be. So you remember Yahushua's talking to the Pharisees. It's always important when looking at the scriptures to look, especially the parables, to look at who Yahushua is talking to when he's saying the parable. Because he said parables to a lot of times the parables he was talking to the other people, the Pharisees or a multitude or something like that. But I believe there were times when he was talking directly to the disciples. But when he talked to the disciples about parables, he usually would tell the disciples what the parable meant. Because remember, a lot of times the parables wasn't meant for the multitudes to know what they meant. But he'll reveal it to the disciples, the meaning. But nevertheless, with this one, it's about a king. He said the kingdom of the Shamaim is like this. It's of a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son. All right. All right, so think about this. I've been teaching this for years, so hopefully somebody knows. But I won't even ask the question. I'm just going to go into it, okay? The feast days, y'all. Who is the bride of Yahushua? He said this, the parable started off, he said the kingdom of the Shamaim is like this. Is a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son. Who is his son? Who's the son of the king? Yahushua. Yahushua HaMashiach. Who's his bride? Who's the bride of Yahushua? Who's the bride? I'm going to just ask y'all. I'm going to ask y'all this one. Who is okay. So the kingdom of the Shamaim is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son. Okay. Who's the son of the king? Who's the son? Yahushua, right? Who's Yahushua's bride? Who's the marriage going to be with? Let's see. Somebody answered something. All right. Huldah said Israel, us. Yes. Khan. Yirmiyahu and Shamayahu said, we are the bride. That's right. Uriel Reeve said, Israel, his people, us, Khan. Deontay, Khan. Yeah, y'all on it. The EE, Khan. Okay. Yeah. Khan. So, we are the bride. Okay. All right. Then it says, here, the king arranged a marriage for his son and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding. All right. Who would be his servants called to invite people to the wedding? That would be, the servants would represent, in a sense, the leadership. So you just gotta kind of roll with me on this. It will represent. It will kind. I know this. It will kind of represent the leadership in a sense, because it would be the people who were like the laborers of Yahuwah. You know what I'm saying? I know because the bride is supposed to be us as well. It's supposed to be the assembly. It's supposed to be the leaders. We're supposed to be his bride. But just roll with me on this. So he sent out his servants. Those are the laborers of the Most High, to call those who were invited to the wedding. Okay. So he's going to call those who are invited to the wedding. All right. They were not willing to come. Again, he sent out other servants, saying, tell those who are invited. See, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen, my cattle are killed. All things are ready. Come to the wedding. They made light of it and went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his business. And the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them. So this is what I'm getting to with this. Y'all know what represents the wedding? The feast days. The feast days, y'all. The feast days. Yeah. Yeah. Every aspect of the feast surrounds around the wedding, the Kodesh, the set apart wedding ceremony with Yahusha. Now, it gets a little more so Pesach is like the covenant meal portion of the wedding. It's like the covenant meal and the covenant ceremony. You eat the bread and the wine just like in a regular Hebraic marriage. You have the bread and the wine. You have all those things, right? When Yahusha sat with the 12 disciples, that represented his bride. And they had what was called the Last Supper. They had the bread and the wine, the lamb, etc. Then you have the wedding party. The wedding party, that's Sukkot. That's like the marriage celebration. That's like the wedding party. You see what I'm saying? That's when the bridegroom tabernacles with his bride. That's when Yahusha dwells with man. That's the when the consummation takes place. No, I'll take that back. Actually, the consummation happens on Yom Kippur on the cool. That's really Yom Kippur. But I would say the wedding party is Sukkot, and the wedding party still surrounds around intimacy with the bridegroom. That's party time. That's the celebration. Why am I bringing these things up? Because it shows the significance of the feast days and why you're supposed to show up. You can't just be missing feast days, y'all. Yahusha shows up during Sukkot, y'all, man. He shows up during all the feast days. So what happens if there was a feast day that you were invited to? You were invited to the feast day. You were invited to come to Sukkot. Isn't it a sacrifice to come to Sukkot? Yeah. Dwelling in tents. You gotta pack up a whole lot of stuff. It costs a lot of money. All that. I know. Y'all not saying nothing but a thing. Y'all not saying nothing. I know. You got all that going on. But then Yahusha shows up though. There were Sukkot where we saw so many signs and wonders. Y'all, I remember Sukkot 2022 where I literally saw Yahusha. I know that's a lot to say, y'all, but man, listen, it wasn't just me. It was multiple witnesses. Multiple. I believe it was 2022 or maybe it was 2021. Sukkot. If I didn't go that year because man, I got too much going on. I got stuff going on with my job, with the whatever. Or man, that's just too much. Too much money. Oh man, you would have missed that. If you decide not to come to the feast days, which represents the wedding, represents some portion of the Kodesh. Um, I mean, I know it's generally rehearsal, but that's what it represents. It's symbolic of the wedding with Yahusha. It aligns with the marriage customs of the Hebraic wedding. That's what the feast days align with. If you decide to take light of the feast days and be like, I ain't going, and then Yahusha shows up, you missed it. You weren't there. What does that mean for you? Yahusha shows up every year, and there's usually some sort of impartation, some sort of blessing, something that is imparted during that time that enables you to get through the year. It's things that he'll give you that enable you to endure throughout the next year, whatever you're about to go through, or whatever you're about to deal with, or whatever is about to come. But you missed it because you said you had this going on or that going on. There was things more important. Why? Because you made light of it. And then we wonder why, stuff comes up where then we'll see people drop off. They'll fall out of the walk. And then you look at the history. Oh man, they wasn't going to the feast days. They was missing stuff. They was missing Shabbats, appointed times. They lost their endurance because they made light of the set apart times that the Most High set apart to be with His bride. Let's keep going. So, technically, I know we generalize it. We say the bride is all of Yasharal. It's us. It's a little bit more nuanced than that, though. Especially when you look at this parable. The bride is a specific people. The bride is a very specific, set apart people, and then everybody else there are supposed to be there to witness. To be there to witness it as witnesses. The people who are invited. So whether you are specifically the bride or you are the witnesses, you're supposed to be there though. You're supposed to be there. And so, but yeah, all praise to the Most High. Let's get Bakir Sargon. Who deemed to you? Oh yeah, we got the thing in place. Hold on. Yeah, let me go on and get you squared away.
Here we go. I'll praise the Most High. Confess Houdin to you. Houdin where it's due. Man, this is powerful, man. This is wild. Yeah, I read when you read that verse, I was like, yo, we just spoke on this. So Now I remember what I couldn't remember earlier when I was talking to you. So looking at verse 2 here, right? Well, even before I get to that, it says in verse 5, it says, "But they made light of it and went their way, one to his own farm, another to his business." So I say, okay, they made light of it. I mean, why would you make light of what do you make? What do you mean to make light of? And it led me back to this thought in verse 2. If you scroll up just a little bit, Yahusha is talking about the kingdom of the Shamayim, the thing that they made light, and he compares this kingdom of the Shamayim to a wedding. What they're making light of is really the kingdom of the Shamayim. Why am I saying that? Because this is a thought that hit me earlier. As a people, it's an undeniable fact that once we learn a thing and once we begin to understand a thing, we do love the knowledge of it. Remember, at the beginning, you said he was talking to the Pharisees. The Pharisees searched the scriptures out. They knew the scripture, but you know what they hated? The kingdom. And it caused me to think about the difference between the two. Because he says that, man, you search the scriptures because in them you think it gives you life or something like that. But the scriptures are that which testify of me. Yahusha came with the power of the kingdom of the Shamayim. The kingdom, the reason that our people historically have hated the kingdom but love the word of Yahuwah is because as a people, we hate order. That's just facts on facts. That's it. When he says, "Hey, come to this wedding feast," that was like an order. Verse 4 says it. Well, actually, I'll just read verse 2 through 4 just for the point. So the kingdom of the Shamayim is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding, and they were not willing to come. The feast days are these things, these appointed times where you're in, here you go, son, where you're invited to come to fellowship with Yahuwah. Then we have to ask this question like, okay, well, is the invitation mandatory or is it optional? This is a thought process that we have as a people even today. Is this a mandatory thing or is it an optional thing? Verse 4 says, again, he sent out other servants saying, "Tell those who are invited, see, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fatted cattle are killed, and all things are ready. Come to the wedding." If this was today, the question we would ask, well, is this a mandatory or is it optional? Are you telling me I have to be there or are you just inviting me to come? That's because we read this through a Babylonian mindset. In an Eastern culture, a wedding is a covenant. That's something that most people would give a lot of stuff to go to. They would have to leave their jobs. They'd have to take off. They would leave their homes, leave their cattle, leave their farms. Remember, their jobs was, hey, I gotta take care of my field so that I can feed my family. Just bear with me, because I'm trying to point to how like they made light of the kingdom and how we can still find ourselves doing that today. So in the Eastern mindset, a wedding is like this, it's a covenantal agreement, and it's a big deal. That's why he was angry when they said they weren't coming anymore. And not only that, well, you'll get into that. I ain't gonna go into that part, but this is my point that they made light. Okay. So let me back up then. So not only did they make light of the kingdom, but then they despised the servants. So the servants that went out from the kingdom were those who came from the kingdom. The servants that went out were already in the kingdom. Had they not been in the kingdom, they would not have been able to come out and go to the people who were invited. That's how you know what you said earlier is true. This is about certain people. We already talked about this. This is about the sons of light. It's the sons of light who descend into sin and come out of the kingdom. Not all of Israel is sons of light. If that was true, then all of Israel would have been able to ascend up the mountain. If that was true, then all of Israel would have been with Elijah, would have been with Elisha. All of Israel would have been with Dawid, but not all of Israel are sons of light. So you got to be able to mark who the servants are. Because if you don't mark who the servants are, you're going to do the two things that's going to upset you. One, You're not going to heed the warning. You're going to make light of what's being said. And because you make light of what's being said, you're going to go every man his own way, one to his farm, another to his business. The second thing that's going to happen is when the servants come back and they make a second call, in verse 6, it says, and the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them. If you don't recognize who the servants are, then what winds up happening is you wind up despising the messenger, when really they are of the kingdom of the Shamayim. So this is what I'm talking. All I'm saying is that the way that they made light of this thing is this: that one, they love the word of Yahuwah, but they hate the kingdom. That's what the Pharisees were like all the way around. Two, they failed to recognize who the actual servants of the kingdom of the Shamayim was. Because again, if everybody was servants, the servants wouldn't have had to go to nobody and say, "Hey, come to the wedding." The body of Israel, I'm more and more convinced that the body of Israel as a nation, not everybody's a son of light. Not everybody is of the Shamayim in the way that Yahusha was. You remember Yahusha said that in John chapter 3, he says, no man has what do you say? No man has ascended into the Shamayim except for the Son of Man who is in the Shamayim. So he describes himself as being in these two places at once. One, he's on earth while also being in the Shamayim. Paul says something similar in Colossians. Talks about setting your mind on heavenly places where you are seated. And he's speaking from earth. So anyway, we just got to be careful not to make light of what is being brought out by the servants of Yahuwah, and also to make sure, like you're saying, we got to make sure we make the wedding feast. Because even if you're not a servant, you want to make the wedding feast. The servants are going to be at the wedding feast. You know what they're going to be doing at the wedding feast? They're going to be serving. You know what they're doing at Pesach? Serving. What they're doing at Sukkot? Serving. So you got to make sure that you make the appointed times, because that's the time when Yahuwah feasts with us. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's right on the money. That is it. And because it says here that let's see, verse. When it says in verse 6, when it says, and the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them, you can also, Yahusha said, even if you hate your brother in your heart, you've already killed him. You already murdered him in your heart. I know that's not the same thing as physical murder, but at the same time, if you are moving in a way to where you hating the servants of the Most High, you treating them spitefully, you speaking against them, you doing these things to try to murder their character, try to kill their character, try to do things like that, which is what people do, y'all. You moving just like the people spoken of in this parable. Remember, Yahusha is speaking to the Pharisees right now. Who y'all think he talking about? Who y'all think he talking? Who are the servants who seized and killed? Who are the people who seized and killed the servants of Yahuwah? We know it's the Pharisees prophetically. Yahusha speaking prophetically. They're going to end up doing that. And then you go before that, they did that to the prophets. Because God mentioned Elijah, Elisha, and things like that. Who were killing the prophets? Think about it during the days of Elijah. Who was it killing the prophets, y'all? Who was it? Was it Moabites? Was it Ammonites? Who was that killing the prophets during the days of Elijah? These was Israelites, Mishpaka. Yeah, it was under the headship of Jezebel. We understand that Jezebel was the one who was leading the charge, but these was Israelites that were killing the prophets. Don't forget that Jezebel's husband was an Israelite by the name of Ahab. And he was the king during that time. And he was fully okay with it. He could have stopped that when they were killing all them prophets. He was the king. No, he was through with it. King Ahab. Yeah. Israelite. And the Pharisees were moving in that same type of ruach. Yahushua answered and spoke to them again by parables. The kingdom of the Shamaim is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son. He sent out servants to call those who were invited to the wedding, and they were not willing to come. If you were invited to the feast days of Yahuwah, you need to come. You need to look at that as a celestial invitation, because everybody's not invited. Everybody's not able to come. Again, he sent out other servants, saying, tell those who are invited, see, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen, my fatted cattle are killed. That's how you know this is about a feast. The feast days, y'all. The fatted cattle are killed. All things are ready. Come to the wedding. But they made light of it and went their ways. One to his own farm, another to his business. What do y'all think that's about? Oh man, I gotta go to work. Man, I can't do it. I can't go to Sukkot, man. My job, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Now listen, this is what I'm not saying. Let me say this, because Sukkot, I know how Sukkot is a challenge because it's so many days. You know, let me go ahead and say this right now so it won't be misunderstood. I'm not telling nobody to get fired from their job, to go quit, to go keep Sukkot. I'm not saying that. I'm not telling nobody to quit their job because I got to keep Sukkot. Not telling nobody to do that, okay? Let me say that very clearly. However, you know, if you didn't do your due diligence to prioritize Sukkot, you know, most of y'all, if y'all would have just submitted your time ahead of time, you would have been able to keep Sukkot. But you made light of it, so you didn't prioritize it to do that, and so now you're using your job as an excuse because it's not that important to you. It's not a priority to you. So you didn't do your due diligence to take off. I've been in this truth for it's been almost 15 years. Let me think. This will be it's been 14 years. I think this might be my 13th or 14th Sukkot. I gotta look back. And I've been working for a long time. I've been leading the assembly for almost a decade. Got young people, old people, all kind of people who all work. Everybody has to work. And I know that most jobs, if you do your due diligence, they'll let you take off. In America, most jobs, if you do your due diligence, you tell them ahead of time. When I mean ahead of time, I don't mean a couple of weeks ahead of time. No, I mean 3 to 5 months ahead of time. You let them know that this is a religious observance. You have a letter. They will let you off. I know this. I have to do it. And Mishpaka, over the years, had to do it. We've had multiple years in a row where we had 100% attendance for Sukkot. And listen, Sukkot is usually about 10 days. It's technically 8 days, but when you put in the days to pack up, things like that is usually about 10 days. We had 100% attend the whole tribe, y'all. Was able to do all days of Sukkot for the last several years. Yeah, I think the last 3 years we was 100% attendance for the whole Sukkot. Yeah, you'll do what's important to you when it's all said and done. Yahuwah knows that. Yahuwah knows. I'm not gonna be digging and trying to see if you're really doing your due diligence like that. Yeah, if you say, hey, it's just one of those things to where Yahuwah knows the heart, and if he knows that you could have took off, you could have kept Sukkot if it was important to you, if you did your due diligence. You may can use your job as an excuse to me or one of the leadership. Say I had to work, so I couldn't go. But Yahuwah knows. And he might not look at that as an excuse. He might not. And so the things that you miss from not going, you missed. And it could cause you to not be able to endure whatever is coming during this next season. I'm speaking on this because we're in that season, y'all. 12 years. Okay, 12 years. Toda Mushala. So this will be the 12th year, 12th Sukkot for us, 12th Sukkot. All right, let's keep going. They made light of it and went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his business. I just can't emphasize this verse 5 enough, y'all. Because that be the number one thing. Sukkot is the biggest one because Sukkot, it causes you to have to unplug. You're supposed to unplug from Babylon during that time. You unplug from your kind of your work stuff, your day to day. The farm was like your day to day things you got to do at your house, the maintaining of your house, your crops, whatever. Sukkot was kind of the time you're supposed to unplug from the world, unplug from Babylon. It's like you in the Shamayim for those days. That's what it's supposed to be, kind of from that perspective. You unplugging for those days. You need that, y'all. I'm telling you, you need that. People think they need vacations. People try to take vacations to do that. I'm gonna take a vacation because I just need a rest from the day to day from work. We need to take a vacation. Vacation is through. Now the vacation is a through thing to do. But no, the vacation of vacations is Sukkot. It's when you unplug from Babylon to get that rest, and Yahuwah's in the midst. So he does things. He puts things in you and takes things out of you during that time many times. So that you'll come back recharged. You'll come back to your farm. You'll come back to your job recharged, replenished, refreshed, and ready to take on whatever Yahuwah has for you to take on for that year. There's way more above and beyond what any vacation can do for you, because that's what people take vacations for, is to try to take a break from Babylon and try to get refreshed and replenished. And that's a through thing. Spend time with your family, spend time with your children, spend time with your spouse. That's a through thing. But there is nothing. That's nothing on the level of what you get from Sukkot. Some of y'all, you don't go to Sukkot, but you get out, you take off for the vacations. You make sure you got off for your little vacation, but then you don't take off for Sukkot. Oh no, I had to work. I couldn't go. I had, what I'm saying, I had to work. You prioritized your vacation over Sukkot. And we wondering why people are not unable to endure. All right, let's keep going. But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his business. And the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them. And those are that represents the people who be speaking against the leadership, speaking against their heads, who be doing those things like that, speaking against things they don't know, and so on and so forth. Verse 7, but when the king heard about it, he was furious. And he sent out armies. Sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. This is what do y'all think? Yahusha is prophesying against the Pharisees. He's talking. This is 70 A.D. This is what's coming in the future. Because what happened in 70 A.D. Yahuwah sent out Rome was his armies. He used Rome to literally destroy all of Jerusalem. He said, destroyed those murderers and burned up their city. That's what happened. Jerusalem got burned down on 70 A.D. And that was a judgment from Yahuwah. Yahusha in this parable is letting them know why 70 A.D. was going to happen. Why 70 A.D. happened is because the Pharisees seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them, Mishpachah. That's what the Pharisees ended up doing. They crucified Yahusha. Then they went against the apostles. They went and they persecuted his followers. So he sent out. So the king that represents Yahuwah sent out his armies and destroyed those murderers and burned up their city. That's 70 A.D. Then he said to his servants, the wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found, both Thub and Ra, both bad and good. This is a big one. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. Man, this is a big one. That's Ezekiel 20. But when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. So he said to him, friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment? All right. It's a very big deal that he called him friend. So friend, we think, when we think friend, we think, that's my buddy, that's my friend, that's my ak or whatever. But, that's more to, friend is like mishpachim. Like, Rhea is your family, your mishpachim. Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. All right, so what does it mean to not wear the wedding garment? I submit that's just a lack of a diligence. Not receiving the words, not receiving the teachings. You come in and you're not adhering to the words and the commandments. Because the priest had to wear specific garments to go and to do the work. You had on the wrong garment. How? You didn't follow the instructions. And so they would cast it out. Outer darkness means you outside the gates. So All right, so verse 7, probably this is what I submitted. Verse 7 surrounds around 70 AD. But when the king heard about it, he was furious. He sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burned up their cities. So after 70 AD, there was something interesting that happened. Our people were scattered. The Yahudim were scattered to the four corners. Scattered to the four corners. You had the transatlantic slave trade happen. We're scattered even to the ends of the earth, even into the Americas. That's what happened after 70 AD. It led to the transatlantic slave trade. If you're not familiar with all that history, watch Reclaiming the Throne. That's a through source. Reclaiming the Throne. I believe it's still on Tubi. Pretty sure it's still on Tubi. I mean, if it's not on Tubi, y'all send me a message. I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. It's on. I know it's on a couple of public platforms though. He said to his servants, "The wedding is ready, but all right." And so now you have everybody scattered to the four corners. The Yahudim are scattered to the four corners now after 70 AD. Okay. Now is the situation to where he said to his servants, "The wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore, go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding." So I submit that this probably refers to like going to the four corners, the regathering of the people. This is associated with the regathering from the four corners, the awakening. That's the best way to explain it. This is referring to basically now the awakening. I submit this is prophetic. It says, "Therefore, go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding." This is the awakening, because look what it says. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found. This is the regathering, both bad and through, both raw and through. That's the awakening. You had this great awakening. All these people are gathered. They're coming back. They're turning back to the lure of Yaakov. But it's a mixed bag of thub and raw. It's bad and good people mixed together. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. And so you had this awakening where you had all these people that returning to Yahuwah. They were called by Yahuwah's servants. You know, they listened to a teaching from one of Yahuwah's servants. They listened to a word from one of Yahuwah's people. The servants gathered them. But it was a lot of rod mixed with thub in there. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. He said to him, "Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment?" He was speechless. King said to the servants, "Bind him hand and foot, take him away." Who was the ones that cast him out? It was the Yahuwah's servants. Cast him in the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. I submit that's Ezekiel 20, y'all. Let's go there real quick. We read this every Shabbat. Ezekiel 20. Verse. All right, look at this. Okay, y'all look at this. Okay, verse. Remember the parable said, then they went to the highways and byways and gathered all who were willing to come, both good and bad, both raw and thub, or thub and raw. Now look at Ezekiel 20, verse 33. "As I live, says Adon Yahuwah, surely with a mighty hand and with an outstretched arm and with fury poured out, I will rule over you. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you out of the countries where you are scattered." That's the going to the highways and byways, Mishpaka. The king sent his servants to go throughout the highways and byways and to gather whoever's willing to come, basically. That's what this was referring to. That's this time that we're in, the awakening. "I will bring you from the people, gather you out of the countries where you are scattered, with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, and with fury poured out. I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples." And there I will plead my case with you face to face. That's the judging. I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples. What is the wilderness of the peoples? Remember, like Yahusha taught this some years ago. That's this. That's the awakening. That's this. This is a wilderness amongst the peoples, amongst the nations. We are in the wilderness right now, the wilderness amongst the peoples. This is not the wilderness like when we were children, when our ancestors were in the wilderness by Sinai. This is the wilderness of the peoples is this. We are in the wilderness right now, a wilderness amongst the nations. In the midst of the nations is a wilderness as well. Remember, the Hebrew word for wilderness is midbar. That's the Hebrew word for wilderness, midbar. It starts with a mem. The letter mem, I submit, is associated with the wilderness. It's associated with the oceans, the seas, but it's also associated with the wilderness because the oceans and the seas represents what? The nations, the other nations, which represent, with the other nations can also represent a type of a wilderness as well. That's why I submit midbar starts with a mem. Yeah. The wilderness of the peoples. That's why the mem is the numerical value of number 40. Oh, snap. See, some of y'all look at that. And the children of Israel were in the wilderness. No, I'm sorry. The mem is the numerical value of, 40. Yeah, I'm right. Yeah, 40. And some of y'all were skeptical when I said the mem it can also represent the wilderness. But wasn't the children of Israel in the wilderness for 40 years? Look, see what I'm saying? The mem can also represent the wilderness, the letter mem, as far as symbolically, y'all. Because the mem represents the nations and the peoples. And there is a wilderness of the peoples that was prophesied in Ezekiel 20, and that's what we are in right now. In the wilderness of the peoples, it's this awakening that was going to happen. It happened around 2017. It was what we would call the Great Awakening. We regathered, and we were in this called the wilderness of the peoples, where Yahuwah was trying us, proving us. He was pleading his case with us, judging us while we were in this wilderness amongst the nations, the wilderness of the peoples. We were awakened. Yeah, Yahuwah awakened us. He showed us who we are. We were the children of Israel. Oh, praise to the Most High. We are Yasharah. And all this wisdom started coming out. Reclaiming the throne drop. You had all these other documentaries. That's when actually the first time I ever heard from the Melakim was from a documentary they dropped in 2017. Woke up many people. That was a big part of my awakening. It was when they did that first. This was before Reclaiming the Throne. It was a YouTube documentary in 2017. Yeah. I forgot what it was called. It was called Apologetics, Reformed Apologetics. Somebody help me out if they know what I'm talking about. It was like Reformed Apologetics something. Yeah, I'll try to. They were responding to the reform people, so it was called like Reformed Apologetics. Debunked. It was something like that. Man, that was the best, most succinct, most powerful documentary I have ever seen up to that date. This is before I knew who they were, who the Melakim were, or anything. 100% unbiased. That was the 100% neutral and unbiased perspective. That was the most succinct, from a scholastic perspective, documentary I've ever seen. Up to that date, Never been more since then, like Reclaiming the Throne, things like that. But up to that time, yeah, that was a major part of my awakening. Major part. Because I always knew we was the children of Israel. I had woke up around 2000. I was keeping Torah since 2014, but I fully awakened around 2016. So I knew we were the children of Israel for since 2016 for sure. But I didn't know how to prove it. I didn't know how to show, other than Deuteronomy 28. I was trying hard to figure out a way to show it succinctly, and then that documentary, I saw that, and that was it. That was it, y'all. That was it. And so I just say that to say that that was the wilderness of the peoples. He regathered us, and then he started pleading with us. He started judging, because a lot of us who were regathered are not in the awakening anymore. A lot of us who woke up in 2017, 2016 are not in the awakening anymore. Why? Because then Yahuwah started pleading with us. He started judging us. He started testing us and trying us. That just like in the wilderness, a lot of the people who started off in the wilderness, they didn't endure to the end. A lot of them ended up being thousands, ended up being cut off. Right? It's the same thing with this wilderness. Yahuwah put the children of Israel through a lot of hardships, a lot of trials and testing when they were in the wilderness in the book of Shemot, in the book of Exodus, and a lot of thousands didn't make it. It was thousands of people who got cut off while in the wilderness. Similar is the case in this awakening. That's it, man. Yeah. Reformed apologetics destroyed. Reformed apologetics destroyed. Yeah, it might be still on YouTube. I'm not sure. I know, y'all know how YouTube be tripping, because that went super viral. So you know how that goes. Then they started suppressing it, the documentary. But yeah, reformed apologetics destroyed. I told her about Mushala, and so that's how it is to this day. Like the Most High, then he starts proving. He starts testing, and you go through. He has causes you to go through things, and so on and so forth. All right, let's keep reading. I will plead my case with you, says Adon Yahuwah, and that's Safat. That really means that I will judge you. I believe it's Safat. Let me make sure. Okay, I don't want to say it wrong. It's either Safat or Mishpat, but I'm pretty sure it's Safat. Yeah, Safat. Yeah, I will plead Safat. Safat. So yeah, it really means I would judge. He would be judging you during this time, just like he did in the wilderness. Verse 37, I will make you pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will purge the rebels from among you. So what is that saying? That the people who were gathered were the Thub and the Ra. Remember, he purged the rebels from among the children of Israel in the wilderness, in the book of Exodus, in the book of Shemot as well. The same is the case with this wilderness. That's why a lot of people are not here who were originally in the awakening. That's real. I will purge the rebels from among you and those who transgress against me. I will bring them out of the country where they dwell. That means he'll wake them up. He'll wake you all up. But they shall not enter the land of Yisrael. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah. All right. So, with all that being said, that's where we at. So this last part of the parable, I'll submit, is prophetic about today. Basically, to summarize it, says, when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there. Verse 12. Verse 10, I mean. So the servants went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found, both Ra and Thub, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. That's somebody who was transgressing. They transgressed. He had to be purged. That's why in verse 13 it says, then the king said to the servants, bind him hand and foot, take him away, cast him into outer darkness. I will purge the rebels from among you and those who transgress against me. There it goes. And there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, Mishpaka, many. There was many who woke up during the awakening, but now it's the numbers are getting lower and lower now. Because only few are chosen. It's only a few. The awakening is one thing, but as far as the chosen set apart of Yahuwah, that's only going to be a few, Mishpaka. Verse 15, then the Pharisees went and plotted how they might entangle him in his talk. So now they're trying to plot against him because they know Yahushua's talking about them. They know Yahushua's talking about them. And they sent to him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Teacher. So they sent to him their disciples with the Herodians. So these are people who, y'all know Herod was an Edomite. So these are people who's really, trying to see if they can get him. And they sent to him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of Eluah in truth. So that's flattery, y'all. Teacher, we know that you are true and to teach the way of Eluah in truth, nor do you care about anyone, for you do not regard the person of men. Tell us, therefore, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? So now they're trying to trap him and get him locked up to speak against paying taxes. But Yahusha perceived their wickedness and said, Why do you test me, you hypocrites? Man, Yahusha didn't hold no punches, y'all. Show me the tax money. So they brought him a denarius. And he said to them, Whose image and inscription is this? They said to him, Caesar's. And he said to them, Render therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to Eluah the things that are Eluah's. When they had heard these words, they marveled and left him and went their way. They was like, man, you got it. You got it, man. And they was like, man. But they were trying, and y'all gotta be careful with that too, because people, y'all gotta be able, you want to be able to discern when people are asking you questions, whether it's coming from a through place or not. Because sometimes people will be asking you questions that is just to trap you. It's just to try to get you to say something so that they can say something against you. There's nothing you're gonna be able to tell them to make them be through with what you're doing or with what you are about. They're asking the questions to trap you or to have some sort of accusation against you. You know what I'm saying? And so that's huge. Just keep that in mind. The same day the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him, saying, Teacher, Moshe said that if a man dies having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up offspring for his brother. Now, there were with us 7 brothers. The first died after he had married, and having no offspring left his wife to his brother. Likewise the second also, and the third even to the 7th. Last of all, the women died also. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife of the 7 will she be? Ooh. For they all had her. Yahusha answered and said to them, You are mistaken, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of Eluah. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like Malachim of Eluah in the Shamayim. Oh, that's a whole thing right here. Man, hold on, that's a whole thing right here. That's a whole thing right here. Okay, let me see here. We might have to touch back on this next time. This is a whole thing right here. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage. Because see, I really do believe that this is actually related to the parable. Because remember, the parable started off with a king who's arranging a marriage for his son. You know, because when you think about the resurrection, okay, we're thinking about the resurrection as far as the spiritual resurrection, but you also got the resurrection as the awakening too. You got the resurrection as the resurrection of the kingdom as well, the awakening in a sense, are the remnant of the awakening who actually make up the kingdom. And it says they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like Malachim of Eluah in the Shamayim. So that goes into in the Shamayim, they're one. They're one. So maybe that's why in the Shamayim they're not like they don't marry or are given in marriage, because they're one. What I mean by they're one, the wife comes from the husband. When they go into the earth realm, like Adam and Eve, Adam and Kawah were children of light. So they existed in the Shamaim before the Most High manifested them on the Eretz. That's the concept of that. But they started off as one. They started off as one. And then the Most High pulled the wife out of Adam and made the one two. And then the two got married and became one again. I did a whole teaching on this earlier this year. You know, that's just one of those things where I just probably need to just post the teaching when I get a chance because I'm just so behind on posting these lessons. But who would it be praised though? But I just say that to say there's a whole lot with this. Verse 32. Verse 31. But concerning the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by Eluah, saying, I'm the Eluah of Abraham, the Eluah of Yitzhak, and the Eluah of Jacob. Eluah is not the Eluah of the dead, but of the living. And when the multitudes heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. Man. Verse 34, but when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, man, Yahushua was getting them, they gathered together. Then one of them, a lawyer. So a lawyer back then was someone who specialized in Torah. Then one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question, testing him and saying, Teacher, which is the great commandment in the Torah? Yahushua said to him, you shall love Yahuwah your Eluah with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. So, that's the whole thing right there as well, y'all, for real. Okay, so if you love Yahuwah with all your heart, that's what all your aim, your intentions is in doing the will of Yahuwah. If you love Yahuwah with all your soul, that's a big thing, y'all. With all your nefesh, you love Yahuwah. That means you're going to do his will even if your nefesh is contrary to it. That's about your soul being formed to Yahushua, I submit. Your soul being formed to Adonai Yahushua. That's about Yahushua being your head, being your bridegroom. You know, this is about you being formed to Yahushua. There's some sort of intimacy there with you and the bridegroom. And so that your soul is formed to him and not to Babylon or to another nation. It is showed that the Pharisees, their soul was formed to Rome and to another nation because they were even trying to trap Yahushua so they can get Rome on him. That's why they were trying to ask him about Caesar and taxes and stuff like that, to try to get him to say something so they can accuse him before the Romans, to say that he was against Caesar. Yeah. They were trying to trap him and try to have and get Caesar on them. Because that's who their devotion was to. They didn't love Yahuwah with all their soul. Because their soul was not formed to Yahushua. I hope y'all get what I'm talking about. Because I'm trying to talk about this without taking too much more time. But basically, in a marriage, so there's been some marriage research. I talked about this before. It's been a couple of years roughly. But MATITYAHU brought out the article about when a man marries a virgin and then he lays with her during the marriage, his DNA goes into the woman and her nefesh, her soul, forms into the man, to the husband. The man's DNA literally goes into her. It forms her it helps her to be able to submit to him. It helps her to be able to join to him, and that's how the two become one, because his DNA literally is inside the woman. Okay, and so the concept is that's us being the bride of Yahushua. It's the same similar sentiment. We have to have the DNA of Yahushua in us. That's what will enable us to love Yahuwah with all our nefesh, all our soul. We have to have the DNA of Yahushua in us. That's what will enable us to better be able to submit to Yahushua, to submit and to do his will and to keep his commandments as the bride of Yahushua. Hopefully that made more sense, and y'all get what I'm saying with that. So that's how you love Yahuwah with all your soul. You can't have Babylon in you, but you be able to love Yahuwah with all your soul, because you can't serve two masters. You can't have the DNA of another all in you. You can't have the DNA of another bridegroom in you, but yet you'll be able to fully love Yahusha with all your heart and your soul. You see what I'm saying? And what the issue is, that's the same issue that our ancestors had in the wilderness in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, is that the children of Israel, when we were in the wilderness in the book of Shemot, we were unable to really serve Yahuwah with all our soul because we still had Mitzrayim in our nefesh. Our souls wasn't fully formed to Yahusha. And that's the issue that we deal with today. We try to serve Yahuwah, but we still have remnants of Babylon in us. And it's not easy to be delivered from that. It's not a simple thing. That takes a lot of aruka, a lot of healing, y'all, to get the Babylon out of you. There's a lot of levels to this thing. All right. But that's why that's the greatest commandment, man. Listen, you shall love Yahuwah, your Eluah, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. That's you being immersed in Yahuwah and Yahusha. That's just in your thoughts all the time and your memories. He said this is the first and great commandment. You know, that's probably, you could say, greatest. That's really what it's saying. Verse 39. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the Torah and the prophets. While the Pharisees were gathered together, Yahusha asked them, saying, what do you think about Hamashiach? Whose son is he? They said to him, the son of David. So while the Pharisees were gathered together, Yahusha asked them. So now Yahusha's questioning the Pharisees. He said, what do you think about Hamashiach? Whose son is he? They said to him, the son of David. He said to them, how then does David in the Ruach call him Adonai, saying, Yahuwah said to my Adon, sit at my right hand, till I make your enemies your footstool. If David then calls him Adonai, how is he his son? And no one was able to answer him a word, nor from that day on did anyone dare question him anymore. Man, Yahusha told them up, y'all. Because what Yahusha was trying to show them is that he's above David. The Hamashiach is above David. He's above Melech Dawid. Man. But yeah, Yahuwah to be praised, y'all. Does anybody have anything before we wrap it up? Let's see what we got from these comments here. Khan, Yirmiyahu and Shemayahu said appointed times with the bride, intimacy, Shabbat, new moons, and feast days. Uriel Reeves, she said, I pray for an open door to participate in all the feast days. All praises, I know the day will come. Hallelujah. Khan, absolutely. Yeah, seek Yahuwah, keep praying on it. I think me and you had talked before. This the same Uriel. This the Uriel in Canada. Yeah, just keep praying. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. This the Uriel in the east. Okay. Praise Yahushua. Yeah, just be seeking Yahuwah, you know, most high make a way, you know what I'm saying? However Yahuwah will is, but at the same time, what you can do though is that don't mean not to keep the feast days though, you know. I know like with me and Mushala, before, you know, we would in the beginning we'll just keep them at home, or you know with the fam, or you know things, do our best until you know there's a way we can you know be with like a tribe, you know what I'm saying? And so I would just do your best in the meantime with you know keeping them how you can in your vicinity. We would keep, you know, like Pesach, you know, it would just be at our house with our family. We would do Sukkot, you know, like in the backyard if we had to, or we'll do like a park, you know, just about at least making that effort, you know what I'm saying, as much as possible, as much as you possibly can. That's what I would recommend to do in the meantime, and then be praying and seeking Yahuwah on to open the door. And man, I'm telling you, man, you'll do it. He did it for us. He did it for us. But all praise to the Most High. All praise to Yahuwah. Yirmiyahu, some of y'all said Cain and Abel. Yeah, there's to be their brethren who went against each other. Yeah. Mushala said, replenish to get through the dark season. That's it. Because Sukkot is the last feast day before the dark season come in. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, for real. Yirmiyahu said, many on the highway are the ones walking on the path. Come. That's it. Mushala said, wilderness equals humbling and testing. That's it. Come. Yeah. Ima Oriel said, when they bound them up hand and feet and cast them into outer darkness, they couldn't even try to fight for themselves or walk away from it. Man, that's powerful right there. That's real, Ima. Mushala said, Khan, that is what a delusion does. It binds, stifles our actions, hands, and our walk, our feet. Man, that's deep. Man. And who was the one who did the binding of the hands and feet? It was Yahuwah. He's the one who told the servants to do that. And so Yahuwah will cause you to go into a delusion if you cross certain boundaries or cross a certain line. He'll give you over to that. And Mushala was talking about the great mystery of marriage that we were talking about. Khan, that's real. Let's see. One flesh, Khan. Ephesians 5:28-33. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. That's it. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it just as the master does the assembly. That's it. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Mashiach and the assembly. Nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. Hallelujah. That's it. Hallelujah. That's through Uriel. Hallelujah. Most definitely. Analayahu and Imuna said, Kafehudim. Also, doesn't the mem also represent testing too? Is this why the wilderness which you brought out as representing mem was a place where the Israelites were tested to see where their heart was similar to what we are experiencing now as a nation? That must be Imuna. So also, doesn't the mem also represent testing too? Is this why the wilderness which you brought out as representing the mem was a place where the Israelites were tested to see where their heart was similar? Oh, Khan, absolutely. Yes, the mem represents testing, trial as well, with it being the number 40, because the number 40 represents that. So yeah, no, through point. All right, y'all. Is there anything else? Told out, Brittany. All praise to the Most High. Told out to Yahuwah and Yahusha. All praise to Yahuwah. All right, y'all. Well, if there's nothing else, we will go ahead and close. Y'all have a Shabbat Akkad, much Ahavah. And Most High willing, we'll do this again next time. Yushakab.
MATITYAHU.